I'm only partly to blame. All my children had a great relationship with me until the divorces.
Kody Brown just walked onto live television and committed what might be the most unbelievable self-sabotage of his entire career. During a Fox Morning Show appearance in New York, he casually admitted that everything he said on Special Forces about taking ownership and being accountable for his failures as a father was a complete and total lie. Not a misunderstanding, not taken out of context, an actual admitted lie. After millions of viewers watched him break down in tears, claiming he finally understood where he went wrong with his family, he's now openly confessing it was all performance art designed to get the drill sergeants off his back. The man literally said he only took responsibility because he was in a military-style situation and felt pressured to say what they wanted to hear. He didn't mean a single word of it.
When the divorces happened, the children were the victims of the divorce, and they had to pick sides, and they had a closer relationship because of polygamy to their mothers.
Let that sink in for a moment. Kody Brown sat in front of cameras, cried real tears, and delivered what seemed like a genuine moment of self-reflection about destroying his relationships with his children. Fans were shocked. Critics were cautiously optimistic. Even the most hardened Kody haters wondered if maybe, just maybe, he was finally becoming self-aware. But no, it was all smoke and mirrors. He walked into that New York studio and torched his own credibility without even realizing what he was doing. The drill sergeants on Special Forces pushed him to examine his role in alienating his kids, and instead of genuinely reflecting, he calculated exactly what words would make them stop interrogating him. That's not growth, that's manipulation in its purest form.
I felt like the only military way to manage this is to take full responsibility. If you're partly culpable, you're fully culpable. It's just like ownership. And so I went into it going, yeah, I was the problem. I was the one that made the mistakes.
And here's where it gets even more disturbing. After admitting he lied about taking ownership, Kody immediately pivoted to his greatest hits of blame deflection. He claimed his children naturally drifted away from him because of polygamy, not because of anything he personally did. He positioned himself as a victim of circumstance, suggesting the family structure itself forced his kids to choose sides. Then he blamed sister wives for making things toxic, because the show gave his ex-wives and children a platform to share their truth. Translation: everything was fine when Kody controlled the narrative, but once people started speaking openly about how he actually treated them, suddenly it became a problem. The sheer audacity of this man to admit he manipulated viewers, then immediately start blaming everyone else in the same breath is almost performance art. He's not sorry he lied. He's not embarrassed. He genuinely believes he did nothing wrong, and that admitting the lie somehow proves he's being honest now. But what it actually proves is that Kody Brown is exactly who we've always known him to be, a narcissist who will say anything to avoid genuine accountability. The Special Forces finale airs this week, and now every single emotional moment Kody has on that show is tainted. We'll all be watching those tears knowing they're calculated. We'll hear those confessions knowing he'll retract them the moment it's convenient. Let's rewind to just a few weeks ago when Kody appeared on Special Forces and had what looked like a genuine breakthrough moment. The drill sergeants were grilling him hard about his relationships with his children, demanding he take real accountability for the wreckage of his family. And Kody, in what seemed like a moment of raw vulnerability, completely broke down. Tears streaming down his face, voice cracking with emotion, he admitted that his failures as a father came from not understanding how to be a good dad and husband. He said he truly thought he was doing everything right, but he misunderstood what his family needed and did things wrong in so many ways. The kicker? He confessed that he hated being blamed for the family's dysfunction, and that hatred made him resistant to taking ownership.
But it's mostly the real issue is like, we broke up as a family. I can't be the only one that's culpable for that. Everybody else has to take responsibility. All the ex-wives have to take partial responsibility.
When the drill sergeants called out this resistance as an adolescent way of looking at things, Kody didn't argue. He said he'd take that criticism. He sat there visibly shaken and appeared to be processing decades of denial in real time. Fans watching at home were absolutely stunned. Social media erupted with debates about whether this was finally the moment Kody would change. Even the harshest critics had to admit it looked convincing. The tears seemed genuine. The vulnerability felt real. For the first time in Sister Wives history, it appeared Kody might actually be capable of self-reflection. But here's the thing about pathological liars and narcissists. They're incredibly skilled at performing emotion. They know exactly what people want to see and hear, and they can manufacture those moments with stunning precision. Kody has spent years on reality television learning how to play to cameras, how to craft narratives, how to position himself as the misunderstood hero of his own story. So when those drill sergeants backed him into a corner, demanding he own his failures, Kody's survival instinct kicked in. He calculated the fastest route out of that uncomfortable situation, and the answer was obvious: give them exactly what they want to hear. The performance was masterful, honestly. The tears, the broken voice, the admission of being resistant to blame, it hit every single note that would satisfy the drill sergeants and make viewers believe he was finally breaking through his own defenses. And it worked. The interrogation ended, the pressure lifted. Kody escaped that hot seat, having successfully convinced everyone he'd experienced a genuine epiphany about his role in destroying his family. Mission accomplished. Except Kody made one critical miscalculation. He forgot that those tears and confessions were recorded and broadcast to millions of people. He forgot that admitting it was all a lie would make him look exponentially worse than if he'd just refused to take responsibility in the first place. At least refusing would have been honest. At least viewers would know where he stood. But lying about accountability, performing emotional breakthroughs you don't actually believe, then casually admitting the deception on national television, that's a whole different level of dysfunction. And somehow, Kody thought this was a good idea. So fast forward to yesterday when Kody appeared on a Fox morning show in New York to promote the Special Forces finale. The hosts asked him about those intense emotional moments on the show, specifically about the mental challenges he faced versus the physical ones. Kody explained that the physical aspects weren't particularly difficult for him, but the mental interrogation by the drill sergeants really pushed him to his limits. The host showed the clip of him crying and confessing his failures as a father, and then they asked him to elaborate on what that moment meant to him. This was Kody's opportunity to double down on his supposed growth. This was his chance to prove the breakthrough was real. Instead, he did the exact opposite. Kody looked directly at the camera and admitted that he only said those things because he was in a military-type situation with the drill sergeants. He explained that in a military environment, if you're even partly responsible for something, you have to take full responsibility. That's just how it works. So he went into those conversations thinking he'd tell them exactly what they wanted to hear. He'd say he was the problem, he was the one who made all the mistakes, and that would satisfy their demands. But then Kody dropped the bomb. In reality, the blame should be shared with his ex-wives. Let that sink in for a moment. Kody Brown openly admitted on live television that his tearful confession about being a terrible father was strategic manipulation. He didn't actually believe he was solely responsible. He didn't actually think he needed to take full ownership. He was simply performing for the drill sergeants because he knew that's what would make them stop grilling him. The entire emotional breakdown was calculated theater designed to extract him from an uncomfortable situation as quickly as possible. The audacity of this admission is genuinely staggering. Most people, when caught in a lie or exposed for manipulation, will at least try to spin it or downplay it. They'll claim they were misunderstood or taken out of context. But Kody just laid it all out there with zero self-awareness about how it would make him look. He genuinely seemed to think that explaining his tactical lying would somehow make him look better. Like admitting he manipulated the drill, sergeants proved he was being honest. Now, the logic is absolutely baffling, and the hosts' faces during this confession were priceless. You could see them processing what Kody was actually saying, trying to figure out if he understood he was destroying his own credibility in real time. They asked follow-up questions, probably hoping he'd clarify or walk it back. But Kody just kept digging. He seemed almost proud of his ability to read the room and tell people what they wanted to hear, like it was some kind of survival skill he'd mastered rather than a deeply problematic pattern of dishonesty. The man was genuinely bragging about lying on national television, and he had no idea how bad it sounded. But Kody wasn't done deflecting. Oh no, he was just getting warmed up. After admitting he lied to the drill sergeants, he immediately launched into his explanation for why his relationships with his children fell apart. And surprise, surprise, it had nothing to do with his own behavior. According to Kody, his 18 kids naturally drifted away from him because of polygamy. Not because he treated them poorly, not because he played favorites, not because he emotionally abandoned most of them while lavishing attention on Robin's children. Nope. It was simply the structure of plural marriage that forced them to choose sides. Kody explained that when the divorces happened, the children became victims of those divorces. They had to pick sides, and because of polygamy, they naturally had closer relationships with their mothers. So of course they chose their moms over him. It's just basic math, really. The system itself was rigged against him from the start. He's positioning himself as another victim of polygamy's inherent structure, rather than acknowledging that his own choices and treatment of his children drove them away. anyway. It's the ultimate deflection because he's blaming something abstract and systemic instead of looking at his concrete actions. Here's what makes this argument so infuriating. Kody had great relationships with his older children for years within the exact same polygamous structure. Those kids loved him, they defended him, they participated in the family dynamic without issue. So clearly polygamy itself wasn't the problem. What changed wasn't the family structure. What changed was Kody's behavior once Robyn entered the picture. He stopped showing up for his other kids. He stopped making them feel valued. He created obvious hierarchies where Robyn's children got everything and everyone else got scraps. Christine's kids watched their dad choose Robyn's family over and over again. Janelle's kids saw him dismiss their mother and prioritize Robyn's needs in every situation. Even Mary's only child, Leon, felt the sting of Kody's favoritism and emotional absence. These aren't abstract feelings, these are documented patterns that played out on sister wives for years. The kids didn't drift away because polygamy forced them to choose. They walked away because Kody gave them every reason to leave and zero reasons to stay. And let's be crystal clear about something. When parents divorce, children don't automatically have to pick sides. Healthy co-parenting exists. Plenty of kids maintain strong relationships with both parents after a divorce. The only time kids feel forced to choose is when one parent makes it impossible not to. When one parent is toxic, manipulative, or emotionally abusive, kids naturally gravitate toward the safer parent. That's not about polygamy. That's about self-preservation. Kody claiming his children were victims of divorce, who had no choice but to abandon him, is peak narcissistic deflection. He's framing their decision to distance themselves as something that happened to them rather than something they actively chose based on his behavior. They're not victims of divorce. They're survivors of his parenting. And the fact that he still can't see the difference after all this time proves exactly why those relationships are broken. But Kody had another target in his sights, and this one was particularly revealing. He told the Fox hosts that things became very, very toxic because of Sister Wives itself. Every one of their flaws and faults was being portrayed on the show with everyone pointing fingers at each other. He said the kids naturally moved away from him, and that hurt him deeply. He was doing the best he could through the entire situation, but the show made everything worse by giving everyone a platform to publicly blame him for the family's destruction. Let's unpack what Kody is actually saying here. For years, he controlled the narrative on Sister Wives. His ex-wives walked on eggshells around him. They covered for his bad behavior. They made excuses for his absence and favoritism. They pretended everything was fine even when it clearly wasn't. The kids stayed quiet about how they really felt. Everyone played their assigned roles in Kody's carefully constructed fantasy where he was the benevolent patriarch holding a complex family together through sheer force of will. And during all those years when people were protecting him and hiding the truth, Kody had zero problems with the show. But then something shifted. Christine left and started speaking her truth. Janelle followed and stopped making excuses for him. The adult children began opening up about how Kody actually treated them behind the scenes. Suddenly, the narrative Kody had controlled for over a decade started crumbling. People were sharing their real experiences. They were calling out his favoritism, his broken promises, his emotional manipulation. They were exposing the man behind the curtain, and Kody absolutely hated it. So now he's blaming Sister Wives for making things toxic. But the show didn't create the toxicity, the show simply stopped hiding it. What Kody is really saying is that he's angry, he lost control of the narrative. He's furious that his ex-wives and children finally felt safe enough to tell the truth about their experiences. He's mad that viewers got to see who he really is instead of the version of himself he'd been carefully curating for years. The toxicity he's complaining about isn't the show, it's accountability. And here's the delicious irony. If Sister Wives is causing so much pain in Kody's life, if it's destroying his relationships and making everything toxic, he has a very simple solution available to him. Stop filming, walk away, quit the show. Plenty of his adult children would probably celebrate if he finally stepped back from the cameras, but he won't do that, because despite all his complaints about how the show ruined his family, Kody loves the platform. He loves the attention. He loves being on television, even if it means everyone gets to witness his dysfunction. So blaming Sister Wives for his broken relationships is just another tool in Kody's deflection arsenal. It's not the show's fault that people are holding him accountable. It's not the camera's fault that his behavior is being exposed. The show didn't create these problems. It just stopped letting Kody hide them, and that's what he really can't forgive. Then Kody dropped another bombshell that perfectly encapsulates his complete inability to understand power dynamics. After admitting he lied to the drill sergeants and only pretended to take responsibility, he said that in reality, the blame for the family's destruction should be shared with his ex-wives. He genuinely believes that Christine, Janelle, and Mary are equally culpable for what happened to their family. He's trying to rewrite history as if they were all equal partners in this disaster, all making joint decisions that led to the family's collapse. The delusion is breathtaking. Let's get something straight here. These women were not Kody's equals in this family structure. Polygamy, especially the fundamentalist version Kody practiced, is inherently hierarchical. The husband holds all the power. He controls the finances. He makes the major decisions. He decides which wife gets his time and attention. The wives exist in a subservient role by design. They're supposed to be submissive to their husband's authority. That's literally the foundation of the belief system they were all raised in and committed to. So for Kody to stand there and claim his ex-wives should share equal blame for the family's dysfunction is absolutely absurd. How can you hold someone accountable for outcomes when they had no authority to change those outcomes? Christine couldn't force Kody to spend time with her kids. Janelle couldn't demand he treat her family fairly. Mary couldn't make him show up emotionally for their marriage. They were operating within a system where Kody held all the cards, and now he wants to claim they're equally responsible for how he played those cards? It's gaslighting on a massive scale. And let's talk about what it took for these women to finally leave. They didn't just wake up one day and decide to bounce. They endured years, decades in some cases, of emotional neglect and mistreatment. They tried everything to make their marriages work. They begged Kody to be present. They compromised their own needs and desires trying to fit into his vision of family. They watched him choose Robin over and over again and still tried to hold things together. The amount of abuse they tolerated before finally saying enough is actually heartbreaking. Because here's what Kody doesn't understand or refuses to acknowledge. Leaving an abusive relationship takes incredible courage and strength. It's not a decision people make lightly, especially when they're deeply embedded in a religious belief system that tells them leaving is spiritual failure. These women stayed far longer than they should have because they were trying to honor their commitments and protect their children. And the cycle of abuse Kody put them through, the manipulation and control and emotional games, kept them trapped in that cycle for years. The only person responsible for abuse is the abuser. Period. Kody can't claim his ex-wives share the blame for the abuse they suffered at his hands. He can't demand they take ownership of his failures as a husband and father. They were victims trying to survive in an impossible situation, and the fact that Kody still sees them as equally culpable proves he has learned absolutely nothing. Then the Fox hosts brought up something that's been swirling in the sister wives drama for weeks now. They asked Kody about Mary's claims that he wanted her to sign a non-disclosure agreement during their property settlement. This was Kody's chance to address the NDA controversy head-on, maybe even take some accountability for trying to silence his ex-wife. Instead, he launched into the most transparent lie of the entire interview, which is really saying something considering everything else he'd already admitted. Kody acted like the whole NDA thing was just crazy talk. He said it was all something a legal representative, a lawyer, had recommended. He really emphasized that word lawyer in this weird way, drawing it out like he was trying to make it sound more legitimate. He claimed it was just part of a business transaction that was happening, and it had nothing to do with the show. Things just got misconstrued and misunderstood, he explained. The problem was that he and Mary were only talking through lawyers at the time, so wires got crossed. Simple misunderstanding, nothing to see here, but here's where Kody's story completely falls apart. Anyone who's been following the Coyote Pass property drama knows that all real estate transactions are public record. Every single document related to the sale and division of that property is recorded with Coconino County. You, me, any random person on the internet can go look up exactly how the property was divided, when documents were signed, who paid what. It's all right there for anyone to see. So what exactly would Mary need to sign an NDA about if everything's already public record? The timeline alone exposes Kody and Robin's lies. On Sister Wives, they made it seem like Mary was holding up the property settlement, dragging her feet and creating problems. But the public records tell a completely different story. Robin was the one who refused to sign for months. The holdup wasn't Mary. It was Robin demanding Mary sign this NDA before she'd agree to finalize anything. They literally edited the show to make Mary look like the problem when county records prove it was Robin all along. So why would Kody demand an NDA if not to keep keep Mary from talking about what really happened. The only logical explanation is that he wanted to control what she could say about their relationship, their finances, and the family dynamics on Sister Wives. He wanted to silence her from exposing things that happened behind the scenes, things that might contradict the narrative Kody has been selling to viewers, things that might reveal financial improprieties or broken agreements or manipulative behavior. An NDA about a real estate transaction makes zero sense. An NDA to keep an ex-wife from spilling secrets on a reality show? That makes perfect sense. And Kody saying it wasn't about the show is the biggest tell of all. Remember earlier in this same interview when he admitted the show made things toxic because people started blaming him publicly. He hates that his ex-wives are finally telling their truth, so of course he'd try to legally prevent Mary from doing exactly that. When Kody says something isn't about the show, it's always about the show. What this entire New York interview exposes is Kody Brown's core operating system, the fundamental pattern that defines every single one of his relationships. He walks into uncomfortable situations, assesses what people want to hear, delivers exactly those words with whatever emotion seems appropriate, and then immediately abandons those positions the moment he's in a safer environment. It's manipulation as reflex. It's dishonesty as survival strategy. And the fact that he openly admitted to doing this with the Special Forces drill sergeants reveals he doesn't even see it as problematic behavior. Think about what he's actually confessing here. He sat across from trained military personnel who were trying to help him understand his role in destroying his family relationships. These weren't people trying to humiliate him or tear him down. They were pushing him toward genuine self-reflection and accountability. And Kody's response was to perform exactly the emotional breakdown they wanted to see, say exactly the words they wanted to hear, and then privately dismiss all of it as tactical lying to escape discomfort. That's sociopathic level manipulation. But here's the thing. Kody has been doing this his entire adult life. He did it with his wives for decades. He'd promise Christine he'd be more present, then disappear to Robin's house. He'd tell Janelle he valued her partnership, then exclude her from major decisions. He'd assure Mary their relationship could heal, then emotionally abandon her completely. Every single one of his wives has stories about Kody making promises, performing temporary change, and then reverting to his default behavior the moment the pressure lifted. The pattern is identical. He does the same thing with his children. They'd confront him about his favoritism or absence. He'd cry and apologize and promise to do better, and then nothing would actually change. He'd give them just enough performative emotion to buy himself some time and relief from their disappointment. Then he'd go right back to prioritizing Robin's kids and ignoring everyone else, over and over and over again. The kids eventually learned that Kody's words meant absolutely nothing. His tears were manipulation tools. His apologies were exit strategies. And now he's done it on national television with millions of witnesses. He performed a breakthrough that never happened. He manufactured vulnerability that wasn't real. He weaponized tears to manipulate trained professionals whose entire job is detecting dishonesty. And then he walked into another interview and casually admitted the whole thing was fake, because in Kody's mind, admitting he's a tactical liar somehow makes him more honest than just being a regular liar. The logic is completely inverted. What's maybe most disturbing is that Kody genuinely seems to think this is normal behavior. He doesn't appear embarrassed or ashamed about admitting he manipulates people. He talks about it like it's a clever survival skill he's developed rather than a profound character flaw that destroys every meaningful relationship he has. He's proud of his ability to read rooms and deliver performances. He doesn't understand that what he's describing is pathological dishonesty. And that complete lack of self-awareness is exactly why nothing will ever change. The absolute best part of this entire train wreck interview was watching the hosts try to maintain their professional composure while clearly thinking Kody was one of the strangest people they'd ever encountered. Kurt Menefee, who most people know from Fox NFL Sunday, gave Kody the most awkward goodbye at the end of the segment. He said something like it was interesting to get to know you or interesting to meet you, and you could hear the subtext screaming through every word. Translation, you are bizarre and I never want to speak to you again. The discomfort was palpable. And honestly, Kurt's reaction is exactly what happens when Kody ventures outside his controlled sister wives environment. When he's interacting with people who haven't been conditioned to tolerate his nonsense, they immediately clock him as weird. They pick up on his narcissism, they notice how he talks over people and dominates conversations. They see through his performative emotions. Regular people who aren't invested in the sister wives ecosystem meet Kody and think, what on earth is wrong with this man? It's actually validating to watch. During the interview, Kody even admitted he irritated his Special Forces castmates. He called Randall Cobb, a professional football player, by the wrong name. name the entire time they were filming together. He referred to Sean Johnson East and Andrew East as Sean and Andrew West. And instead of being embarrassed about constantly getting names wrong and annoying everyone around him, Kody just laughed it off. He said he can't remember names and has a big mouth and just keeps talking even when people clearly want him to stop. Like it's quirky and charming instead of deeply inconsiderate and self-absorbed. That admission right there tells you everything you need to know about Kody Brown. He's aware he bothers people. He knows he dominates conversations and doesn't listen. He understands that his constant talking irritates those around him, and he doesn't care. He frames it as just being himself, having a big personality, being unable to control his big mouth. But what he's actually describing is narcissistic behavior where his need for attention and validation overrides any consideration for the people he's interacting with. It's not cute, it's exhausting. The fact that trained athletes and celebrities who've dealt with intense media scrutiny found Kody annoying says volumes. These aren't people who are easily rattled or unfamiliar with big personalities. They've been in locker rooms and on stages and around massive egos their entire careers. And they still found Kody uniquely insufferable. That takes a special level of obnoxiousness. Brianna Chicken Fry has been vocal about how rude and condescending Kody was to her from day one. Other castmates have made similar comments. When literally everyone you interact with finds you irritating, maybe the problem isn't that you have a big personality. Maybe the problem is that you're just unpleasant. So watching Kurt Menefee give Kody that awkward dismissal at the end of the interview was genuinely satisfying. It was confirmation that yes, Kody really is that weird. Yes, normal people pick up on it immediately, and yes, we're all seeing the same thing. We're not crazy, he is. So here we are with Kody Brown having just proven what Sister Wives fans have known for literal years. He's a pathological liar who will never ever genuinely take responsibility for anything he's done. He'll cry on camera when it serves his purposes. He'll say all the right words about accountability and ownership when he's backed into a corner. He'll perform vulnerability and self-reflection if that's what gets him out of an uncomfortable situation. But the second he's out of that hot seat, the second the pressure lifts, he'll immediately backtrack and blame everyone else for the destruction he caused. The Special Forces finale airs this week, and now every single emotional moment Kody has on that show is completely tainted. When he cries about his broken relationships, we'll know those tears are calculated. When he admits he failed his children, we'll know he's just telling the drill sergeants what they want to hear. When he talks about wanting to be better, we'll know it's all performance because he's already admitted on live television that none of it was real. He's destroyed any possibility that viewers might see genuine growth or change. He sabotaged himself in the most spectacular way possible. And the truly wild part is that Kody doesn't even seem to understand what he's done. He walked into that New York interview thinking that admitting he lied tactically would somehow make him look honest, like confessing to manipulation was a form of transparency. He genuinely believed explaining that he only said what the drill sergeants wanted to hear proved he was being real now. The complete lack of self-awareness is almost impressive in its totality. Most people would at least try to spin their lies or soften their admissions. Kody just laid it all out there with zero recognition of how damning it sounded. This is who Kody Brown is at his core. A man who will blame polygamy for his children abandoning him instead of examining his own favoritism and emotional neglect. A man who will blame sister wives for exposing his behavior instead of taking accountability for that behavior. A man who will claim his ex-wives are equally responsible for abuse they suffered at his hands. A man who will demand NDAs to silence the people he's hurt. A man who will perform emotional breakthroughs he doesn't mean and then brag about the performance. His ex-wives finally escaped. His children are protecting themselves by maintaining distance, and Kody is left with exactly what he deserves, the consequences of his own actions with no one left to blame but himself. Except he still won't blame himself. He'll keep deflecting and manipulating and lying until the day he dies, because genuine self-reflection would require admitting he's been wrong about everything, and Kody Brown would rather lose everyone he claims to love than admit he was wrong. Drop your thoughts below. Are you shocked Kody admitted he lied, or is this exactly what you expected from him? Like, subscribe, and stay tuned because the next video is waiting and you won't want to miss what's coming next.